Right, afternoon folks, welcome to another episode on the channel. This one is the first episode I've done concerning a rule system. The system that I'm looking at today, I backed on a Kickstarter, and it's called Mourir Pour L'Indochine, if I've pronounced that correctly. And it's basically about wargaming, the French involvement in Indochina, 1946 to 1954. The way I thought I'd do it is, after this sort of short introduction, we'll go down to the bench and I'll have a flip through the book. Just quite a general review. I'm not intending to point anything or score anything, just sort of give me my initial thoughts. Then at the end, we'll maybe talk about a couple of books that I would recommend if you're at all interested in this period, and also have a look at some figures. Okay, thank you. So, Mourir Pour L'Indochine, Wargaming French Indochina, 1946 to 1954, by Shawn Taylor. As I mentioned in the introduction, I backed this as part of a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter covered 3D printed figures and also, I believe, some MDF terrain, as well as the rule system, which you could back either as a PDF or a printed version by Lulu. Because I'd already bought some of the Empress 28mm Indochina figures, I was quite happy just really to do just to back the rule system. PDF, so basically got an email off Shawn, PDF attached, printed it out, and I've shoved it in one of these Amazon sort of loose leaf folder thingies. First off, what I would say is that this has very obviously been a labour of love for Shawn. He certainly knows his stuff about the period. Interestingly, I think certainly the average historical wargamer, when you mention French Indochina, the possibly one and only thing they think of is Dien Bien Phu, but there was obviously a lot of engagements prior to that from 1946 in a lot of different theatres running the whole of Indochina. So from the Mekong Delta down in the south right up to north of Hanoi, all with their own sort of separate little idiosyncrasies, and Shawn's covered the varying different strategies well. This first book is covers what he calls individual skirmish level and skirmish level plus. And basically what that is, individual skirmish level is one figure on the table represents one man. So you're looking at squad, section, up to maybe platoon actions. And skirmish level plus, one figure represents 3 actual men. So that obviously gives you the option of slightly bigger engagements, possibly platoon to company level. The only real difference, the rules are the same, the only real difference between the two levels is in the effectively the ground scale weapon ranges, blast ranges, blast templates, things like that. So to flick through it, it's a standard thing. It's skirmish level. So initially there's an introduction where he sort of advises you to go to types of miniatures, base and figures. Obviously for this level of game, ideally figures should be based individually, although you obviously could do it with multiple bases, just develop some way of marking casualties. So you've got basically the units are fire teams, light machine gun teams, things like that, and that's the level it works at. The two levels of players I mentioned earlier on, the lower level, the individual skirmish level, that's the Rangers are obviously greater. But the difference between the two, the rules are the same. It's just, as I say, the distances and the ground scale that alters. So it's sensible, I think, that he's put both of those formats in the one book. There's quite a nice little command and control system, which is fairly standard fare in sort of skirmish level games, where you have your squad leaders or your platoon commanders have a span of control where they can do more things with their troops. It is an I go, you go type of game. So the first person will activate a unit, carry out the unit activation and the unit actions. Second person then activates one of his units, and this continues until they've all been activated. You then do any necessary morale checks and what have you, and obviously at the end check to see victory conditions. Actions wise, number of actions: you can move, shoot, assault, counterattack, rally, assume ambush positions, executing ambushes. There's overwatch covered, response fire. The movement's quite nice in that he gives effectively three types of movements: what he calls route march, tactical march, and fire and manoeuvre, or bounding, or if you're British Army, pepper potting, it was called. And that's quite nice. So obviously the different movement levels have got advantages and disadvantages. Route march, you're covering more ground, but you're more susceptible to enemy fire. All explained really well. I was conscious I didn't want to go into all the details. Firing, again, fairly standard. So you're going to select which fire teams are going to be shooting. You've got to decide whether your NCO, your leader, will control the fire to get advantages. You're going to sight the target. There are some target priority rules which are quite good. You'll determine the shooting value. There's some bonuses on the to hit roll, and you're looking at cover bonuses. Then you roll the number of dice, consult the results on the fire effects table. That's all fairly straightforward stuff. Interestingly, the combat results, what he's done with that, the high A roll, there's a chance of getting a KIA on the opposing team, removing a figure. Lower than that, there's a system he uses called resilience points, and they can build up on your teams. It's basically a stress mechanism for your troops. Covers indirect fire really well. There's also rules to cover airstrikes, so you can get your Bearcats in, your French Bearcats. Obviously, there's no Viet Minh air power, so it's you've just got to be careful on how you maybe allocate it, because it can unbalance the game. However, he does go over that in some of the scenarios and how to get a reasonably balanced game. Cover assault, movement, and the results. All good stuff, all fairly standard, straightforward. So what I mentioned earlier on, the resilience thing, it's basically amount of mental pressure soldiers can take before they can no longer function. And these obviously build up. It's altered slightly down to the quality of the troops. So obviously green or unreliable troops are likely to reach the various stages sooner than regulars, and obviously veteran and elite troops. All make sense. Things like effect you can have, it can halt your movement, you've got to seek cover, things like that. All good stuff. Overwatch is covered, you've got your morale grades. There's a nice section on terrain for Vietnam, which is obviously quite important. And then he goes on to cover the minor things, minefields, convoys, vehicles and boats, So you've got all your Shaffies and your M8s and your Jacksons and what have you. Nice section on riverine craft that the French used quite a lot. So that's all well covered. Night rules, weather, smoke. And then he's on to the scenarios. There's a number of scenarios at the ISK level, the individual skirmish level, and there's some scenarios at the skirmish level plus, so that's quite good. So he covers both systems, running from a very basic initial one, this one here, on a 4 feet square board, and I think that's a reduced French Foreign Legion platoon, couple of squads, and a Viet Minh force of a sniper, a demo team, and a 4-man rifle team. So that's doable really very cheaply. Obviously the scenarios get a little bit more involved the further you go through them. Then he goes on to the ISK Plus scenarios, which are also really good. And he has also included, which I'll get to here, Debacle on Route Colonial 4, which is a mini campaign, which I've read through this, and this looks quite interesting. It's always good, I think, if you go to a club and to have a long-running campaign, link games with what happens in each game affects what happens in the subsequent one. So that looks really well organised, quite straightforward, nicely done. And he then finishes off with some quite full ORBATs and organisations for obviously the French forces, covering infantry platoons, parachute infantry platoons, French Marine commandos, some of the more exotic stuff, the Groupe de Commando Mix Aéroporté, if I've said that right. And then onto the Viet Minh stuff, covering main force units as well as insurgent groups. Really well organised, and as I've said, it has very obviously been a labour of love for him. The PDF for the price, 11 quid, it's a bit of a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. It's very, very good value for money. There's a ton of information, and I'm really looking forward to giving it a blast. I think me and Alex will maybe go through the first scenario, maybe video the game and do like an after-action report. That'll obviously be in the future. Standard QRS thing at the back. So all in all, very impressed. And I would, anyone with the slightest interest in this period, I would certainly recommend them to get a copy. Very, very impressed. Great job by Shawn. What we'll go on to next is I'll do a couple of little book recommendations over the period, and we'll then have a look at some figures. Right, so book recommendations. Couple of Ospreys first. This is one's in the combat series, French Foreign Legion A versus Viet Minh Insurgent. Martin Windrow, he features quite a lot in the in my selection. Bit of an expert on the French Foreign Legion. This is quite a nice little initial thing if you don't know much about the conflict. Covers it standard Osprey fare, covers it really well, nice illustrations, lots of photographs, and covers all the salient points. So this one I'd certainly recommend as a start off. And the Men-at-Arms series 322, which is the French Indochina War 46 to 54, again by Mr. Windrow, with illustrations by Mike Chappell. Again, really nice. Good thing to start off. You can obviously get these very reasonably priced on Amazon. I'll pick a second-hand copy up somewhere. Again, good basic stuff. Covers what you would, what you need to know. Nice illustrations, so you know what you're doing, sort of uniform-wise. If you want to go into the conflict in a bit more detail, this is a really good book. It obviously covers specifically Dien Bien Phu. Again by Mr. Windrow. Really, really good book. A lot of detail. It's a bit of a heavy tome, but it's excellent reading if you're interested in it. Really worth looking for. And this last one was a gift of me good lady, I think one Christmas, possibly a couple of years ago. Histron Collections are a French company, and they do lots of good books that normally feature models wearing the actual uniform photographed. This one's obviously French Paras in Indochina, 45 to 54. The only issue with this book is, as far as I'm aware, it's not available in English. So it's obviously written in French, so you have to access your schoolboy French. Having said that, I managed to follow it fairly straightforward. The photographs you can see are absolutely first class, and it follows it. The way they lay it out from the beginning of the book is in a time period. So from just after the end of the Second World War, right up to Dien Bien Phu. Illustrations are excellent, loads of information, so you can get all the details on your figures right. Can't recommend it enough. Available on Amazon. Really nice publication. So those are my book recommendations. At the end of the day, with books, I think you've always got to, people are obviously limited by finances, and you've got to see what you can do. Second-hand bookshops and eBay are obviously should be your first port of call, and there's certainly these four are really good. Highly recommend them. Right, so looking at some figures. I've got a collection of the Empress Indochina figures, so the French and the Viet Minh. They've been out a little while now. I think they were originally Red Star, and Empress started producing them. Collected them over a while. Really nice figures. I'll just show you some examples. This is obviously one of the Viet Minh. The Maestro, Mr. Hicks, has been up to his normal tricks. Really nice figures. This is like a squad leader officer type. They're just an absolute joy to look at. The castings are excellent. There's a good variety of figures. Particularly the French, what he's done. This is from one of the command packs. You can pick up that the castings are designed around some quite famous iconic photographs from Dien Bien Phu and various other places, and they're just really nice. The command pack and the French, this radio operator here, their heads are cast on. A lot of the other French, they're separate heads, so you have that option of putting helmeted heads or Foreign Legion kepis, or the Bigard cap, which was quite an iconic thing used in Indochina and then obviously later in Algeria. But the figures really are, they're tip top. This is a wounded guy, and there's a medic who goes with him, treating him. They're just lovely, beautiful figures. Really nice. Obviously, this is a bit of a long-running project with me, and I haven't got around. I've painted one, which I've painted as a test figure, a Viet Minh figure, and we'll cut to that now. Right, so this is the casualty evacuation figure, Viet Minh. Really nice to paint. Used me fairly standard technique and just blocked the colours in, shaded them. Gamers Grass have recently released some new vegetation, which you can possibly see just coming into view. It's sort of a palm leaf. Really nice, but they paint up lovely. Right, so that was the first rule episode that I've done, rules review. As I've initially mentioned, I'll include links in the description of the video for obviously the rules system and the other things that I've mentioned. A little bit of housekeeping. What I'm thinking about doing with the channel is looking to do a regular episode, a new episode every Monday. Now throughout the month that's probably going to vary between a bench update, so what I've been painting recently, what I've been building, through rules reviews, book reviews, after action reports, and obviously the showcase videos are going to continue. This really is to try and sort of make it a bit more of a regular feature. Obviously when I started the channel I got quite a lot of videos out initially, but I wanted to just get it more regular, so that's what will be happening from now on. If you've enjoyed the video, please like it. Also, it is worth subscribing. Obviously YouTube updates you when I release a new video, and it encourages me to keep making them. So certainly if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. So that's about it. To subscribe, probably should mention that. You can obviously subscribe on the main page on my video channel, or there is normally at the end of my video in the bottom right hand corner the little subscribe button, which masquerades as an Empress modern British infantryman, and you just click on that. Okay, so thanks very much folks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.